Hey everyone, welcome. As you can see, I've got a worm bin out here on my bench already. It's the mixed red worms. They've been in that bin now for 112 days. This is an interesting system because I built their system using a whole bunch of twine of various sizes. That includes some of it is just really thick twine rope. And it's an interesting system, so let's get to feeding them. Well, the meal plan includes cantaloupe, rinds, cucumber. Those are from the freezer. This here is the seed from a avocado, as well as the skin. Those didn't get frozen. They didn't seem like the sort of things that would benefit from being frozen. I like to normally freeze stuff because I think it does really help with certain things, helps speed the breakdown process. And if nothing else, then it's because potatoes. That's the only word I need to use to justify why I think freezing is useful. Potatoes, man, those things will just start growing. They'll think that they've been like replanted into the soil, and they'll just keep on growing. All right. I usually don't pay a whole lot of attention to stranding little guys on our cardboard cover. Usually I've got something coming up nearby that we can use to even cover that up. And I think we could use this top covering piece of newspaper. This one in here new last time. So prior to this, it was just that cardboard with the plastic covering. It did a nice job, but it left little gaps around itself. And it seemed like this, even though it's a porous material, it's not plastic, I still thought that it would probably end up helping a good bit in terms of keeping the system's moisture in. And all the way out to the edges, it seems like there's nice moisture going on. And I don't have a portion of coffee for the wormies today, so we could either try to hang on to this feeding zone indicator here, preserve it, or just chuck it into the feeding as supplementary bedding, and we'll just give them a nice replacement. I got a whole collection of them over there on the bench within arm's reach. So here's an example of the thickest twine rope, and if you start taking a closer look at it, you could see worms in the stuff and kind of just making themselves at home. This section of it, I believe I must have unraveled or something for it to be this way. I don't think it's worm traffic that opened it up this way. Well, with the system being made up of rope everywhere, I can't just pick up a piece of it and, treat it like material that'll just dislodge from itself. It's all wrapped into itself. So I'm treating it as sort of just a mass, almost like a big sponge, full of little pores and cavities that I'm assuming that the worms are enjoying inhabiting. Down here we're starting to see some of the bedding that we used during the last check-in, because rather than only putting the food down into this little cavity that we created within the rope structure in the middle, which in the beginning just started becoming our standard feeding spot, but last time I felt like perhaps we can put some food down in the middle like we normally do, but then I wanted to put some out on the outer edges, and that feeding included some additional bedding too. So we attempted to enhance the outer edges a bit by providing the food out there too. I guess the whole thinking behind that is that, I'd like for all of this rope to be occupied and in use by wormies, and hopefully getting broken down. I mean, that's the whole idea. Now we're beyond 100 days, and it starts to help me put things into perspective here in terms of, well, if after this much time the rope is still holding out so good, how long is it really going to take, Over here too, it looks like our little feeding pocket on this edge was a popular one, because I'm seeing a good many worms still hanging out over here. Whether or not we encountered any leftovers along the way, I don't know. From the last check-in, I believe there was banana peels that were even found as leftovers last time, and just returned down into the feeding areas. But even before I thought I was spotting and locating a little piece of banana peel, but it was just a piece of rope like this. But it is so cool just to see little itsy bitsy worms all over the place in this stuff. They really like it, clearly. It's funny. I just pet that little worm on his head. Alright, so, I was going to put a little twist on today's feeding. I want to follow the same theme as before of feeding not only down the middle, but a little bit on the edges. But this time, instead of the two far edges, I figured these two closer edges would be the place that we do the same sort of treatment as we did last time. And down here too, a good many worms hanging out down where we last fed. Here's certain things that are just going to keep coming up over and over again. Stuff like pumpkin stems, of which there are 2 in here, actually. Here's just a jumble of rope. Twine. It's this thin twine that I'm used to using out in the garden that I've composted successfully in the past in my worm bins. It's just this this super thick stuff that I got my hands on over the summer. Seemed like an interesting thing to challenge the worms with, so this is sort of an experiment. It's definitely my first time trying to compost rope this size. So, second pumpkin stem, and other than that, I don't think there's anything else in here that we're really kind of keeping tabs on. Not that we're really trying so hard to keep tabs on pumpkin stems. That's kind of like a watching grass grow sort of a scenario. So usually before I go to reach into my collection of prepared bedding, I try to make sure I'm not transplanting any little stowaway worms on my gloves. So looks like we're down to the end of the bedding that had been prepared out of my pink tablecloth. So let's give them a nice generous helping of bedding over here. I contemplated whether or not I would want to apply my squirt bottle to this feeding and include a little bit of moisture as well. And I just decided, you know what? Let's not. I don't think it's necessary. The material everywhere feels really nice. And if you think about some of the stuff that they're getting here, melon, cucumber, perhaps not so much these avocado pits, but everything else I believe is coming with a little bit of moisture. I mean, the worm chow too is sort of a dry thing, but nevertheless, I think it's an overall positive in terms of moisture going in with those bits of cucumber, those bits of cantaloupe. So that'll be feeding number 1, and then we'll get to explore these other edges now along the long side, which we've not yet checked into. I mean, obviously we had to excavate them last time in order to do our little edge feeding technique. So it looks really cool how there's just so many worms all over the place in this stuff. So let's follow suit. This is a nice long edge here. Let's give them a good bit of bedding. And before we forget, why don't we put this feeding zone indicator to good use as supplementary bedding as part of the feeding, and just for kicks we'll lay out a feeding zone indicator right down the middle. Oh man, but we didn't leave a whole lot for the edges, did we? That's alright. It'll promote a little bit of traffic out to there anyhow, I think. And it almost doesn't matter, right? Because when we went over into there, we already saw that a good bit of worm traffic was occurring on its own, even without coercion or incentive. Alright, so really quick, one more over here on my edge, and then we'll be all set with these little guys. Giving them feeding number, what is it, feeding number 9 now? A lot of times I'll come down here with stats and information about each system, but right now I know that they're 112 days of age. I know that we have been keeping to a 14-day interval between check-ins, and that's been every check-in so far. And now I'm starting to worry I'm being a little bit rough. I don't want to agitate these little guys to the point where they feel like they got to bug out. So let's leave it at that before I trigger a mass exodus and fleeing from the system. So might not seem like all that much of a feeding, but you got to remember, all that paper going in, all that bedding material, you got to treat that as food too, because I'm sure it doesn't remain as bedding for long. I'm sure they're treating it as food as they come and go, just like they treat your kitchen scraps. So the stuff is always on its way to becoming gone. So giving them plenty of it just to make sure they're satisfied, I think, is the way to go. So now I still have this sort of weird feeling in the back of my mind, like this system might be in need of a little bit of help to try to combat flying insect situations. So just like we've been doing on the past couple check-ins, even though I don't see much, I think I did see 1 or 2 flying insects, so I figured let's play it safe. Let's put out some of this Mosquito Dunks stuff. In the past, I had always deployed this stuff as a solution and squirted it in a spray out into my worm bins. This is my first time trying it this way, dry, pulverized, and I assume it's going to work well. I mean, I've had pretty good success already with it in recent times using it this way, so I'm convinced it's okay and it's good to go. And I think we've got the last of our little wormy friends removed from my glove, just to play it safe, make sure we're not taking anyone to the sink or have them fall onto the dry floor, only to remain stranded there, which would not be good. So that's it for our check-in with the mixed red worms now. Doing really nice in here, I gotta say, and you know, after we're beyond 100 days now, I'm definitely feeling very conscious, very aware of all that rope and wondering how long is it going to take. I have no idea, but we'll have to see, and hopefully we'll get to see it together. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.